Hey everybody, it's me, Russ, and today doing a video vlog, whatever you want to call it, why I don't drive for Lyft anymore. The biggest nudge was I was in an accident, all right, through the Lyft Flex rental car, the nice little red hybrid that I've featured in some of my videos here. It was totaled. I totaled it out. And I'll get to that. But first, I want to talk about how I got there. Because even after the accident, they were like, hey, you know, you can go rent another car, just pay the deductible, and you're off to the races. You go ahead. It's a pandemic. That's part of it, too. But before I get into that, this video, sort of a review of the last year and 2020, and moving forward, kind of a vlog, so to speak. But I did want to, I did videos on Uber and Lyft in the past, and I don't drive for them anymore at all. And I wanted to highlight why. First of all, it's because over the years, 5 years of doing Uber and Lyft, I started in 2015, and that first year was great. And then I met a guy, my friend Tim. It was actually at an Uber sponsored like luncheon thing, Uber used to do this where they'd bring us in as drivers to certain kind of fancy restaurants in Seattle. And I guess the idea was, we would eat there and then tell people about it. They would give us, coupons and menus and stuff like that to put in the back of the car so that we could share with riders, hey, this is a great place to eat. I guess that was the idea, but the funny thing was it became like a recruiting opportunity for Lyft. That's when I became on both platforms as a Lyft and Uber driver. I met my friend Tim, and we became friends. We're still friends today. At this luncheon, it was like there was like 7 of us at the table, and Tim and I think were the only guys that spoke English real well. There was another older guy that was there, but the other folks didn't have a firm grip on the English language. So it was, we did our best to have, it was interesting, having conversations with them and finding out where they were from and stuff like that. But yeah, Tim signed me up on Lyft after that, and I got some crazy, like a $700 signing bonus at the time, just for doing finishing 50 rides, which I believe I did in a week or something like that. I went full time not too long after signing up with Lyft. So I had a job before that in the pizza business. I've discussed that here on the channel before. That's where my 05 Caravan came in. Drove that thing, 430,000 miles was my business of sales, calling on big companies, industrial parks, and moving large volumes of pizza. So that business started to become it was going downhill. My income had stayed stagnant for close to 7 years. I had not gained any, the food costs kept going up, people becoming more health conscious, the schools, which was a big part of my business, public schools becoming more, we're going to be healthy and promote healthy eating, stuff like that. That impacted that business terrible, right? But the big part of it was that in the pizza business, it is so saturated. The price of a large pizza, I had a friend who was, he'd come into some money and he was thinking about starting a Papa John's in Bellevue because Peyton Manning did it, and so it must be good, right? No, I'm we sat down and I'm like, listen, because I've been in the pizza business for 20 some odd years, and he's like, should I do this? And I said, here's the problem with these big franchises. If you go back in time, this was in 2015, if you go back in time to 1995 and you look up the price of a large pizza, at a coupon price, right? 2 topping large pizza, it's about $10-15. Today, in 2015, it's about 10 to 15 bucks. But the price to make that pizza, the food cost, the labor, minimum wage kept going up, and taxes keep going up. Not to mention renting a space in Bellevue. I'm like, dude, maybe you're smart. We've done some investing stuff together, stock market-y stuff. And I said, just run the numbers and get back to me. And he got back to me a few weeks later and goes, yeah, you're right. I'm not getting in the pizza business. But that's how I saw Uber and Lyft over time. So in 2015, it was great. I'm driving the little Chevy Sonic that first year. I put a lot of miles on that car. That's a whole nother thing. But I was making, $1,000 to $1,500 a week with the bonuses. So I was making good coin, and I was making significantly more than I was making when I was in the pizza business. All right. So it was a good move at the time to get out of the pizza business, drive Uber and Lyft. And I'm a mechanic, so I'm pretty good at keeping my cars running. I kept that van running, right? Again, for 430,000 miles. I drove that thing for a decade, every day from Everett to SeaTac, which is about 40 miles, just to commute there, pick up food, and then drive it all around the Pacific Northwest. At least the greater Seattle metro area. And that worked out, right? Like, that van just kept running. I kept changing the oil. I kept maintenance. I did all the little things, tires, brakes, stuff like that. I know how to do that stuff. Did that on the Sonic as well. But yeah, that burned up that engine in 2 years. Still making payments on it. And, that's another thing with Uber and Lyft. The way that these finance companies, when they sell a car, you talk to the salesperson. I went through an app called Car Gurus, and I found the best deal for the car I wanted, which was that car. I bought into some, I believe, false advertising by Chevy, believing that, the I don't even want to mention the name of this award, but I mean, it's basically a company it's a PR company that people hire to give themselves awards. All right. So, they're running these commercials on how many awards they won for initial quality. You know what initial quality is? It's the first 90 days of owning the vehicle. I think if you're going to buy a car, it should last, if you do the maintenance and stuff like that, it should last at least the year 2000. It should last 200,000 miles, all right? If your car doesn't last 200,000 miles, then you're a failure as a car company, in my opinion. Right? Just the way cars are built today. Now, there's more stringent specs when it comes to the environment, so they're trying to make these cars burn hotter so that there's no fluorocarbons, trying to make these combustible gas engines to have, pretty close to zero emissions. And we're getting there, I mean, everybody's doing electric cars today, but the truth is electric cars, you still got to dam up a river. I mean, build a nuclear power plant. Electric cars, electricity doesn't come from magic. All right, you still, so if we can make fossil fuel cars, like, there's still plenty of freaking oil in the ground. If we can make these cars burn more efficiently, could they beat the electric? We don't know. The future's going to hold. My point is, you're burning up your vehicle if you do Uber and Lyft. I parked it. They didn't take it, by the way. They said they were going to take it. I quit making payments on it. I can't afford to make payments on a car I can't drive. And then I instantly went out before my credit was trashed. I run to one of these used car dealerships, and I bought a Dodge Grand Caravan. And part of my thinking on that was XL. I want to do XL trips. XL pays better. There's not as many XL drivers out there. And, sure enough, after buying the Dodge Grand Caravan, I'm back up to making, $1,000 to $1,500 a week with that vehicle. I bought that vehicle. I had 108,000 miles on it, which is ironically, I drove it 100,000 miles after buying it in 2 years. A little under 2 years, a little over 2 years, I can't remember. But, that's where a lot of my Pentastar ticking right videos came from, fixing that problem, and all the stuff videos I did on the Grand Caravan. Eventually the transmission went out. I tried to change the fluid in it. That was that video. That was sort of when I got the kind of the death code. Somebody said try doing a transmission fluid change and see if that helps, and it did for a few weeks, and then the thing died. And then I went to try it, and at the time my credit was shot, trying to get the transmission fixed. I don't have a shop to do something like that in. I don't know how to rebuild a transmission on a Chrysler like my buddy JT out there in Atlanta. I'm not as skilled at that. So it was going to cost more than the vehicle was worth to repair the transmission. So at this point, again, stopped making payments on the Dodge Caravan. Now, I wanted to mention this because there's some of you that may think that, not paying your bills, Russ, isn't that immoral, right? Like, that's not cool. Like, you signed a contract saying you were going to pay. At the point, I think I was just trying to survive, being a guy at my 50s with only sales experience in the pizza business. I'm doing this business, or whatever you want to call it, job/business, Uber and Lyft, and I'm just trying to pay my bills and keep my wife and I in our house. So not paying car payments on a vehicle that doesn't run. See, again, we get into, you want to talk about morality, we get into the practice of how banks work and how lending practices work, especially for people who don't have great credit, right? Again, the fact that it's legal to put all of the interest on a loan in the front end of a loan, especially on a car deal, you're buying a car, because these banks know fair well that used cars aren't going to last forever, and they want to make sure they get all of their interest. Principal and interest, right? Principal is the amount that you actually owe the bank for the vehicle that you bought. So say you buy a vehicle and it's a used vehicle. I bought the van for $7,000, right? So that's $7,000, that's your principal. That's what you're trying to pay down. But in the beginning of these loans, a lot of people don't know this, but your interest being stuffed up front means that the only part of principal that's going in that payment towards the actual money you owe can be as little as $6 to $10 to $12 per payment in the beginning. Gradually it goes up, but as you first whittle down the massive amount of interest that they pin on these loans. And again, even if the interest rate isn't that high, whatever the interest rate is, they're going to, again, load it at the beginning and the front of the loan. So depending on how many payments you have, like you have a 36-month loan, that principal, that little piece that you're using to actually pay down the loan is significantly less than the interest you get buying in. Do I think this is ethical or legal? Not necessarily, but the fact that we live in a country where lobbyists make the laws, right? The companies who have the money and power and influence the politicians who make the laws. So as a business person, that's what they can do. As a business person myself, what can I do? I can file for bankruptcy, right? You have that. And during COVID right now, this is something that's important. A lot of people need to know this because companies and corporations file bankruptcy routinely as a business practice, all right? It's not a matter of morality or feeling bad that they can't pay their bills. It is simply a business decision that's written in a book of things to do when you're under financial pressure, all right? So businesses do this a lot. So do I feel bad about filing bankruptcy? This is the second time I've done it. I've been self-employed, except for this new mechanic gig. I've been self-employed for 25 years. So yeah, as even a blue collar gig worker kind of guy, you have bankruptcy as a legal and financial option, all right? And you shouldn't have to feel bad about it. I think you should weigh and talk to a professional and weigh all of what this entails, because yeah, it is painful. I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather not have to have had filed bankruptcy, but as a business decision, it's really the only way I saw out of our situation. So as a business person, yeah, I'm not making these payments, and then they, your credit goes south. This is a part of the reality of driving Uber and Lyft. You do this, your car breaks down, you can't afford to fix it. They want their payment still for the car, and if you don't pay, you're going to severely damage your credit. So we filed bankruptcy in November of 2019. And this is about the time I'm renting vehicles. I did some videos on the rentals. I drove a Nissan Sentra, was the Hertz rental, which was significantly more expensive than driving the Flex rental, which happened in 2020. It was like late January, early February of 2020. I gave back the Nissan Sentra. I did a video reviewing that vehicle. I'd driven it for a number of miles. But yeah, you're paying what I think after taxes and everything, it's like $260 a week to drive that vehicle. And then everything over $260 was profit after I bought gas. Now, the Flex rental, I think it was around $220 a week after taxes. And there was limited miles, which was different than the Hertz vehicle. Hertz didn't care how many miles you put on it for personal use. With the Flex rental, they did. So they limited your personal mileage, and they would charge you if you went over a certain amount of miles, depending on whatever plan you grabbed. So I think mine was like, I had 100 miles of personal use a week, and I don't think I ever went over that, even driving the car for personal use. If I was on my own doing like errands or something like that, and my wife wasn't in the car, I would just turn the app on and be clicking on miles, because I'd do a ride maybe if I had the business, right? But anyway, that was, and the Hyundai Iconic hardly used any fuel. I mean, this is the beauty of the hybrid, and that hybrid vehicle was one of the best on the market, right? At the time, it beat the new Toyota Prius. So it got something crazy like 65 miles to the gallon, when you're doing mostly highway stuff, which I was living up here in Everett. We have an airport in town here that opened in 2020. The Painfield Airport, Everett, opened, and so here I got an airport right here in my own city. That was pretty cool too. But COVID happened. And here's the thing, I think I had it, all right? And I'm not sure, but early into renting the Hyundai Iconic hybrid, I pick up a woman at SeaTac Airport, and she, I'll pick her up near, looked like she came from the international area. Asian woman, didn't speak a lick of English, wearing a mask, I grab her luggage, I put it in the kind of trunk area there, and I had this like blue surgical mask on and coughed pretty severely the whole ride from SeaTac to downtown Seattle area. And after that, it took 4 or 5 days. I was sick. I was coughing, wasn't real nasally. I didn't have a runny nose or any of that stuff. Had body aches, and I remember not being able to breathe at one point. I took 4 days off work, which I've not done in a very long time. Even in the pizza business, There's another thing that's probably unethical, but I would work sick, you know. I mean, I didn't touch the food. I just sold the food. It was already boxed and all that. But I worked sick most of my adult life, just having to pay bills, you know, right? I don't have time to be sick. But in this case, yeah, man, I was bedridden for 4 days. And at one point at night, I considered going to the hospital because it was that hard to breathe. I think my wife gave me some of those, you know, steroid kind of whatever they are. But you breathe them, right? You squirt them in your lungs. And anyway, that seemed to help a little bit. Got me through the night. And eventually, it started to go away. But I had a cough, like a hacking, nasty cough for like a month afterwards. Now, was it COVID-19? I don't know. Odds are, just from knowing about the symptoms and the fact that our neighbor who gave us this van, Vicky, she's a nurse at Providence Hospital, which also, by the way, is where the first COVID case in the U.S. was recorded, was here in Everett, Washington, at the hospital she works at. Anyway, so have I had it? I'm not sure. But March 9th was the day I got up and, you know, went to the airport like I started doing as a routine. I'd watch the flight tracker app and look at what planes were coming in at what time, and saw usually the planes would come in here around 8 in the morning from Spokane. Anyway, I'm sitting out there at the airport. I did a few rides. One guy was worried about him having it, you know, and I'm masking up at the time, right? I'm hand sanitizer and all that stuff, because I don't know whether I've had this thing or not, or what it is. And, you know, at that time it was a different thing. There was a lot of news about it. We knew people were dying. A little nervous about it, be honest, a little nerve-wracked. And so March 9th was the day that daylight savings time, you know, went from dark to light here in Washington State. And I'm at this intersection. The sun is setting right in the middle of the road. I got the sun glare in my rearview mirror. The light was green, and I shouldn't have it was my fault. I took a left right in front of this woman driving a Fiat. And again, I had slowed down, and I had a passenger too. So I had a passenger not with me, but I had a ride request, and my passenger was at this bus barn area. So I'm turning to take a left into the bus barn area, not realizing that traffic was coming at me as faster than I thought it was, with all the sun and the sunset and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I turned right in front of this woman driving a Fiat, little red Fiat car, I'd say 2010 or something like that. You guys have seen them around, little Fiat cars that kind of look like a bug of sorts. I don't know. But she had fairly minor damage to her vehicle. It took out her front headlight. I turned right into her, so doing 20, 25 miles an hour. But she drove her car home. She was able to drive the car home, didn't need to be towed. If you can see in the picture, that's the Hyundai Iconic. And that thing was totaled. There's no driving it. The front end it just smashed. Airbag didn't go off either, which was curious. The way it crumpled. And I was fine, by the way. I wasn't injured. My seatbelt kind of yanked on me a little bit, but I was okay. I'm not a, sue people for no reason kind of guy. That's not who I am. I hate that stuff. We're a very litigious society, especially in the Seattle area. There's people looking to sue people for whatever reason, and I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not going to try and sue you, Lyft or Hyundai or whatever, when I wasn't injured. But yeah, the airbag probably should have gone off in that situation. These vehicles, these hybrid vehicles, I don't know how they get away with it. Again, I wasn't injured for a reason, and maybe that has to do with some of the crumple zones, stuff like that. But yeah, man, that car, see, they have to make them light. Another reason that car got, 65 miles to the gallon, and I only had to put like $40 in it a week or something like that, $30, I don't know, was because of I mean, I should have tried to pick up the front end of that vehicle after I saw the accident. I mean, it must have been very, very light. Imagine the engine and all those batteries aren't very light, but so yeah, right after that happened, Lyft, which, you know, they have this whole protocol. I called somebody from Lyft because I was pretty shaken at the time. Like, I don't know how to do this. I call someone from Lyft and they're like, you know, walking me through the accident report. And then the cop on the scene wasn't real helpful. You know, I said, I guess I have to have this towed to a body shop that Lyft wants it towed to. Now, I read this in the information, by the way. Lyft didn't tell me this. The person didn't really know what they were doing on the other end on the accident. That was frustrating. She knew about as much as I did. You know, it's almost like she was reading off the same pamphlet on what to do in an accident situation as I was. So, yeah, the car was supposed to be towed to a body shop that Lyft, you know, would certify and have work done to the car. But the officer on the scene is like, no, we're having it impounded. And I'm like, why? You know, and I couldn't find, you know, the car was in the middle of an intersection during rush hour, all right? So they didn't want me running back and forth, which I can understand. But the guy wouldn't let me search for and find the registration. And I was looking for it. It was buried in the glove box somewhere. And then he calls me out because the other driver needed to talk to me and exchange information. So, you know, again, they stop the intersection. I come back from the car, and he's like, did you find your registration? I go, no, I didn't have a chance to find it. And he's, you know, so he wrote me a ticket for not having insurance and registration, like a jerk. The tow truck driver was really nice, and he actually let me. Tow truck driver's like, do you need to get some stuff out of the car? I say, it's a rental. I go, yeah, dude, I appreciate that. He goes, yeah, come on over. Like, he didn't ask the cops permission or anything. He just like, come on over, you know? And so I get the stuff out, find the registration. I actually handed it to the cop as he's handing me the ticket for not having registration. I took a video on that. So here's the information. And even though I have the information and it's right here in the registration, it's because I didn't give it to you earlier.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't let me get my stuff out of the car.
When we were at your car and you were searching through and I asked you for your insurance registration, you're not able to
yeah.
Stop, listen to me, okay?
Okay.
This is your total. You have 3 options listed below.
Yes.
You can either choose to pay it, top option, mitigate it, middle option, or bottom option, contest it, okay?
All right, but I'm going to bring this to court because I have the
I'm not done yet, okay? Here's the options that are listed for you, okay?
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. When I start on my paperwork and you're not able to provide me those items, that's why I write you for it, okay?
Okay.
Now that you have it, the ticket's already written. So here's the good news about this, okay? There's an affirmative defense to operate a motor vehicle without insurance that shows that you have insurance at the time of being.
Okay.
You have to contest it, though, and go to court on it, okay?
Great.
But this is why you need to have these items ready for us at the time of a collision or recently afterwards, okay?
All right.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Are you have any questions about that?
And so, yeah, I did have the video, and I kept it, and that was my run-in with the police. And as an older man, I didn't get in trouble. So as a younger man, I probably got really mad, tried to argue with the guy, and that never works out, all right? Take it from me, some advice from your friend Russ. Just don't argue with the police, all right? Just take it to the courthouse. The judge is a lot more empathetic than police officers are. And I'm not trying to be a jerk to this guy either. He has a tough job. He needed to clear the intersection during a rush hour. I get that. But yeah, you could use a little tact and be a little nicer, I think. You catch a lot more flies with honey than vinegar.
Are you have any questions about this?
No.
All right. You have
And
to respond
yes,
within
after
15
this
days.
took place, I had my run-in with Lyft. Lyft tried to charge me weekly. There was no communication. Accident, management with this company was horrible. I basically put a stop on Lyft being able to jack money out of my account because they were going to charge me for the rental for every week that it sat in the impound lot. I mean, they didn't even know it was in the impound lot. I'm trying to tell people the communication between Lyft driver and what happens to the vehicle after an accident. It was horrible. I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, it would have been towed to the shop where they would have done the work, but that's not what the accident entailed. And this officer's like, it's rush hour. I'm clearing this intersection. I don't have time for waiting for another tow truck from another company to tow it to, you know, whatever body shop that Lyft wants it towed to. I'm clearing the intersection now. It's going into impound. Whatever, dude. Okay, you know. So, yeah, Lyft, eventually they did work it out. They only charged me a week that it was in impound, which is better than, you know, the month that they wanted to charge me. And they only charged me like $150 as opposed to the $220. And that was about the time they dropped rates because of COVID and people turning in these rental cars. A lot of people not traveling, a lot of tech workers working from home, that kind of thing. But I tried to pay back the $1,000 deductible, by the way. I owed a $1,000 deductible. I signed that thing. I wrecked the car. So I call Lyft's insurance company. They said, no, we don't handle that. Call Lyft's fleet service. I call Lyft's fleet service, and they said, no, we don't handle that either. So somebody will send you a bill from the insurance company about the deductible. And I'm like, okay, I've never received a bill. All right, kind of weird. I did receive a lot of emails and texts from Lyft going, hey, come back to work, buddy. You know, we got a car for you. And I just didn't feel safe doing that. And that's about the time I started this process, which is in some other videos here on the channel, of becoming a full-time professional mechanic, thanks to some of the YouTube content that I've created here and using that as a resume. So now I'm a mechanic. I'm much happier fixing the cars than driving them. But yes, I still do love to drive, just not for a living anymore. And my wife and I have our little G6 here, which is a blast to drive, right? Our little empty nester midlife crisis vehicle as the sun is out for a change here. But 2020, man, it's been a pretty good year. Had a career change, unemployment. That's another one, man. Lyft and Uber, mainly Uber. The CEO of Uber lobbied, you know, Congress, the government, and said for self-employed people everywhere, this really helped. Basically what he said was, you know, there's millions of drivers, they're not employed. And he said, we don't care about you bailing us out. Do something for the drivers. And that was huge. And the unemployment, pandemic unemployment assistance really helped during this time. I know we're going to be taxed on it, so we have a good chunk set aside because we will be taxed on it. But yeah, that money it would help do some projects and buy this car was $2,500 plus repairs. But yeah, and getting the job. Man, I can't complain about 2020, to be honest with you. 2020 showed that I and my people, right, that my country, we can, as many problems as we have, it really depends on how you look at a very stressful, upsetting situation and how you're going to handle it. Life really is 20% the things that happen to you and 80% how you react to that 20%, what you do about it, all right? Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. If you're still watching, subscribe if you haven't yet. You've certainly earned it. Give it a like. Appreciate that. Till next time, hang in there. 2021, here we come. Still have to wear this stupid thing, and right, there's still no concerts to go to or cool bands showing up at the bars. But what do you do? Sports, yeah. Let's hope this thing's over soon. Bye.